October is a month that we want to plant our spring flowering bulbs such as crocus, hyacinth, tulips, and narcissus. Usually the first few months or the first few weeks in October is when you want to plant these bulbs. However, we have a little bit of leeway with our tulip bulbs that we can actually plant throughout the middle of November. And what we're going to do today is show you how to plant some spring flowering bulbs in a little different way. And it's a method that we learned about from the Netherlands Flower Bulb Information Center. And they were telling us this is the way they do it in Keukenhof, Holland. And it's called double decking. And we've selected an area where our lantana was growing. And this area is in full sun. And it's also well drained, and that's the most important thing when you're planting flowering bulbs, that you have a loose, well drained soil. We've already incorporated our complete fertilizer into the bed at about a rate of a cup per 100 square feet. The next thing that we want to do is mark out our location where we want to plant the bulbs, which we've done by these white stakes. When you do double decking, you want to dig a hole about 8 inches deep. And we're using a bulb planter here. And actually it doesn't go quite at 8 inches, so we have to go a little bit deeper. Measure to make sure we've got our 8 inches. Put in a little bit of the bone meal at the bottom. Mix in a little bit of soil. And then the first thing you want to plant is a tulip bulb at about the 8 inches. Now, because tulips and hyacinths don't really bloom at the same time, you want to make sure you get a spring flowering bulb or an early flowering spring bulb that's a tulip bulb, so hopefully it will bloom the same time as our hyacinth. Place a tulip bulb in with the pointed end up, and then cover up about 3 inches of soil. And then next you want to plant your hyacinth bulb right on top of it, and that's why it's called double decking. And again, the pointed end up. And then just cover that bulb with soil, pack it down, and then make sure that you label so you'll know what you've planted. Now what we've used here is a tulip bulb that has red and white colors called Heart's Delight, and on top of that we planted the hyacinth that has a white color, so we think that'll make a nice combination, and those should bloom at the same time next spring. And we'll see how that goes. Now, you want to make sure after you've planted, you water the tulips in. If we should have a real severe winter that really drops down into the 0 or below, you may want to come in and mulch. But remember, if the winter's dry, you still need to water these because they do grow a little bit during the cold months. Then next spring, as they continue to grow and the grass starts greening up and the bulbs start coming up, be sure and side dress them a little bit. Now I want to tell you about some other bulbs that we're going to plant on the edges here that are referred to as antique bulbs. And these are bulbs that were introduced over 100 and 200 years ago. And again, we found out about this through the Netherlands Flower Bulb Information Center. And they got us in touch with the K. Van Burgundy and Company, who provided us these bulbs. The one I have here was introduced in 1750. And it is called Kaiserschoen, and it is a red tulip. We've got some other bulbs to show you too. This one was introduced in 1845, and it is called Color Cardinal. And it's kind of a bright red color as well, where the one over here has a little bit of yellow around the edge, almost a reddish orange color. We've also got some iris. And this one is introduced in 1808, and it's called Iris reticulata, and it's a purple colored iris. And then lastly, we've got one that is called fritillaria. And some of you may know it by the plant that supposedly discourages gophers for coming in the yard. But this bulb, as you can see, is quite large, and it was released or introduced in the year 1574. So these are called our antique flower bulbs, and we're going to plant those and see how they continue and how they grow for us and just see what kind of color. So we're putting a little bit of history in our flower bulb this year, flower bulb garden this year. Now, These are planted just like you would your other bulbs, but if you're not quite sure the depth, check at your local garden center, and they always have a lot of information on planting depths on spring flowering bulbs. So now again is the time to do that, and we'll keep you informed and show you next spring how our bulbs turn out.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.